بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد أخي Abu Atiyya Jazakallahu khairan. Last time you clarified the misconception related to protesting. May Allah reward you. In this session, I want to ask you about boycotting certain products and certain companies which are aiding the Zionists financially. The same Zionists who are butchering and murdering and killing our Muslim brothers and sisters in Gaza. What's your take on this, brother?
We have, first of all, the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Allah, He has made transactions halal and He has made riba, usury, haram. Ibn Taymiyyah comments, الأصل أنه لا يحرم على الناس من المعاملات التي يحتاجون إليها إلا ما دل الكتاب والسنة على تحريمه. This is in the siyasa al-shar'iyya. Rahimahullah, that essentially it's not made haram upon the people to carry out transactions which they require, except that which the Quran and the Sunnah have indicated is haram. So in essence, we're permitted to do transactions until there is a clear proof that this is no longer permitted.
طيب, this general allowance, does it apply in times of warfare? How are we meant to trade with people who are murdering our brothers and sisters, أخي?
Al-Bukhari chapters باب الشراء والبيع مع المشركين وأهل الحرب. Making transactions, buying and selling with the disbelievers and the people who are in a state of war with you. Then he mentions the hadith of Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr, where the Prophet ﷺ, he passed by a mushrik who had with him some animals, and he said to him, "Are you going to sell or is it a gift?" The man said, "La bay', it's a trade." And the Prophet ﷺ, "Ishtara minhu shah." He bought a sheep from him. So the Prophet ﷺ purchased from this man who was a mushrik at this time, which is in time of war. Bukhari's chapter points to it being a time of war, or that this man, he was from the mushrikeen who had an allegiance to the disbelievers who were at war. But the Prophet ﷺ still purchased from him. Ibn Battal rahimahullah, he says, معاملة الكفار جائزة إلا بيع ما يستعين به أهل الحرب على المسلمين. This is quoted by Ibn Hajar in Fath al-Bari. He says that making transactions with the disbelievers is permitted, except the transaction that the disbelievers will use. Ahlul Harbi, those who are at war with the Muslims, they will use that against them. So in essence, a transaction between us and the disbelievers, even in a state of war, is permitted, except what we're certain of that they're going to use against the Muslims. This is when it becomes impermissible. Ibn Taymiyyah also mentions, he was asked about trading with the Tatar, who had come to invade the Muslim lands. We've discussed a bit about the Tatar. So the first attack in Baghdad, this is the Mughal. And then during the time of Ibn Taymiyyah, shortly after that, there was the Tatar, and they say that these are two different tribes. But some of the people of knowledge, they use the Tatar and the Mughal interchangeably, even though they are two tribes of the Turk, which is a broader people. So Ibn Taymiyyah, he was asked about trading with these Tatar. So he says, وَيَجُوزُ أَنْ يَبِيعَهُمْ مِنَ الطَّعَامِ وَالثِّيَابِ نَحْوُ ذَلِكَ مِمَّا يَبِيعُهُ لِأَمْثَالِهِمْ. It's permitted to sell to them from food and clothes and the likes, that which he would sell to the likes of them. Yani, what you would sell to any other person, it's permitted to sell to the Tatar. فَأَمَّا إِنْ بَاعَهُمْ أَوْ بَاعَ غَيْرَهُمْ مَا يُعِينُهُمْ بِهِ عَلَى الْمُحَرَّمَاتِ. However, to sell to them or other than them, that which they will use for haram, كبيع الخيل والسلاح, like selling horses and arms, لمن يقاتل به قتال محرما, to a person who will use those same things in a war which is haram, فهذا لا يجوز, then it's not permitted. قال تعالى, Allah the Most High, He says, وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان, and assist one another upon piety and the taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and do not assist one another upon sin and transgression. So this is in the Masail al-Maridiniya. Ibn Taymiyyah here was asked. So the conclusion we can take from that is trading, selling to a people, even in a state of war. A mushrik who is at war with other Muslims, can you trade with him? It's permitted to trade so long as he's not going to use what you've given him from money and finances, or whatever you've sold to him against Muslims. Then if you know he's going to do this, it becomes haram. And this returns back to the statement of Allah, وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Do not assist one another in sin and transgression.
أخي Abu Atiyya حفظك الله. It doesn't make sense for a Muslim to sell bullets, guns, weaponry, armory to the disbelievers at time of warfare. This I'm sure everyone can agree to. But it seems like what you're saying is we're allowed to sell eggs, we're allowed to sell bread, we're allowed to sell milk, we're allowed to sell food to them, because this can't be used as weaponry. Because if you're saying this, basically a person who is a soldier, for example, is he not going to nourish this body that's going to go and then murder the Muslims? If we're selling food to them, we're selling nourishment for their body, for these people to be strong, to hold these guns, to march into our lands and kill our brothers and sisters. So we're aiding them, even if it's not physically, we're indirectly aiding them if we're selling food to them, akhi.
طيب عبد اللطيف ابن عبد الرحمن ابن حسن ابن محمد ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, who was the great grandson of the Imam, the Mujaddid, the Muslih, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, his great grandson. He mentions, it's found in the Durr al-Siniyah, the 8th volume, 340. الكافر الحربي لا يمكن مما يعينه على حرب أهل الإسلام. The disbeliever who is in a state of war, he is not given access to that which he may use in his war against the Muslims. ولو بالميرة والمال, even if this is food and provision which is being given to him, or wealth. والدواب والرواحل, and animals and horses and the likes that he may use. حتى قال بعضهم بالتحريق ما لا يتمكن المسلمون من نقله في دار الحرب من أثاثهم وأمتعتهم. To the extent he says that some of the people of knowledge have issued a fatwa that if the Muslims are unable to take their belongings to another land, where there's a land of safety, that they are to burn them. There's a fatwa from Ahlul Ilm that indicates the permissibility of burning them. So the khulasa, the summary of this is the trade and the transactions between the Muslims, even in the state of war, is permitted, so long as we do not know with certainty that they're using these things against other Muslims. If we know, it becomes haram. If we don't know, it's permitted, and it will remain under the generality of the transactions which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has permitted. So this will apply to us boycotting certain restaurants or food chains, etc. This will also apply here. And it's important to note that the franchises, that they operate differently depending on where they are situated and the laws that govern that country. So in one country, McDonald's can be governed by a law, and that same franchise in another country can be governed by a different law. They have different tax systems, they have different rules concerning the minimum wage, they have different rules concerning the people who work in those shops. They're all different laws depending on it, because it's a franchise. You pay the money and you purchase it. And this is also mentioned by the Shaykh Ruhaili, Wafaqahullah, Sulaiman Ruhaili, when he was asked about boycotting the likes of these restaurants. So he said that McDonald's in Saudi Arabia is run by those who own it. It's a franchise. They pay money, they buy the title. So to say I'm not going to purchase from them, he said this is dhulm. It has nothing to do with McDonald's in America. So saying I'm not going to purchase from these people, you're just doing dhulm to them, because they have nothing, there's nothing between them and the American company. And we give an example as well how these franchises operate differently. The McDonald's in Indonesia, which is owned by PT Rexo, National Food, seems like. They contributed humanitarian assistance valued at 1.5 billion Indonesian rupee to support Palestine. So it's McDonald's in Indonesia, it's supporting Palestine. You see how it works differently? So if someone says, I'm not going to, because they supported the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and they give them free meals, I'm not going to purchase them. This is the McDonald's that's in the Jewish state. This is the McDonald's that you have a problem with. But every McDonald's, to say they operate the same, you would end up harming people who haven't done anything. So it's important the person understands how these systems work.
Akhi Abu Atiyya Hafizakallah, I understand what you're saying, but what I know is if someone's going to open a franchise, wherever it may be, they have to pay royalties to the mother company. So if this mother company is one that's aiding IDF directly, then your royalties are partly going to be aiding them also. So what's the ruling then?
The issue of the royalties, if I'm a franchise owner and I'm paying royalties for this title McDonald's that I have in this company, or whatever, Burger King it may be, in order for me to say we should be cutting them off and no longer purchasing from them, it has to be ascertained that there is a percentage of these royalties which are being used in arms and in dhulm and oppression against the Muslims. If it's not been affirmed, and we're just speculating because these royalties may have gone back to the Jewish state, that it's going to be used, this is not sufficient. We have to build it upon certainty and yaqeen. So if a person was to say, from my perspective, I don't want to do this, This is your perspective. But when it becomes, if you do it, that you are now sinful or you are supporting against the Muslims, then this is another dhulm. So no one's saying to you that by you saying, I choose not to, and I have other choices, there are many other franchises I'm going to purchase from them, this is your right. No one's preventing you from it. But when you turn the finger against others, and we're not going to be foolish as well. Some of the people, they come out and they say, I like my Starbucks, or I like my this and that. And this is not being sensible in a time where people are being killed and the emotions are high. To come out and do something, it just indicates a lack of intelligence, to say the least. A lack of emotional intelligence. So we're not on this extreme nor that extreme. If it becomes clear, we leave it. If it's unclear, it remains permitted until clarity. If you choose to leave it, this is your decision.
Once again, Akhi Abu Atiyah, Jazakallah khairan for clarifying this misconception. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah rewards those who are boycotting these products and these companies sincerely for His sake. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to aid our Muslim brothers in Gaza and anywhere else on this planet where they are being oppressed. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to elevate the Muslims and give them a swift victory.